Welcome to the Polish Business Podcast. I'm Bart, and here we explore the stories of entrepreneurs like you building successful businesses. Expect short, sharp interviews packed with insights and inspiration to fuel your business journey. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. My guest in this episode is Maciej Klinowski, chartered safety professional who runs a bilingual consultancy called Practipol. This year, you, Maciej, celebrate 10 years anniversary and your brand on the market. Well done. Maciej is also the UK representative of the Polish Association of Health and Safety at Work, and over years he's been actively involved in various research and education projects on health and safety. Maciej, welcome to our show.
Hello, Bart. Thank you very much for the invitation. Lovely to be here.
So, Maciej, when it comes to health and safety, yes, everyone knows your name. You're the most recognized Polish-speaking person, I think, in the UK. Health and safety is a big thing in your profession, and amongst our, Polish business contacts, everyone, passing your name when it comes to anything related to health and safety. You also regularly speak at the conferences, events, and talk about work, but also you're a really good friend and good Polish Business Link supporter. Tell me a little bit more about, you, about the story. What is needed to be where you are now professionally?
Well, I think my story personally is a very typical Polish immigrant story, and, it's a £200 in my pocket coming to London without a good plan, but wanting to change something. So I started with some very basic low-level jobs, and then I was working my way up. I reached kind of a management level at some point because I think upon reflection, one thing that I was using an opportunity to learn. So if there were opportunity to progress, to do some sort of training and things like this, I felt that it's always a good idea. But so I reached the stage that I was okay. I had a job. It was paying my bills, but I felt that something is missing, and I didn't really know at the time what was it. It wasn't a sense of complete satisfaction. Mm-hmm. And then one day, because of organizational, operational reasons, there was a need for someone to step in to do a health and safety project. And of course, using every opportunity, I thought, why not? Let's see, I haven't tried it before. And I never looked back, and that's how it started. So you see, in health and safety, I found numerous things that really resonated with me. You're doing something good for people. Mm-hmm. You're helping people. It is also a very dynamic profession. It is, and many people don't see it like this, but it is extremely dynamic, and it's always progressing, because as the world of work is changing, we are being kept on our toes. We have to be up to date. So it's a constant opportunity to learn for everyone who works in health and safety. So it became more than a job. And very quickly I realized that's something that drives me forward and, resonates with me. So it's much, much more than only about the money. And people who know me for a longer time, they often laugh when I say that, if you're a health and safety person, it's kind of similar category to a doctor, nurse, a priest, a policeman, or a firefighter. It has to be, it has to be done from the heart. If it's only about the job, then it's going to be very dry and people feel it. So, I think it takes a special look at this profession.
It reflects me on one massive point. I do quite a lot of interviews and everything it comes to the same thing. Someone gave you a chance, or you had the opportunity in your lifetime. It doesn't matter whether you've been in the business before or you had a career. Someone didn't just say yes, just try it. So that's the big part. Someone gave you a chance. I think this is my big one out of your story. And I think another one, you did mention something like something is missing. So you're happy with your work or maybe your business where you are, but you feel like you want more. This is like hunger for maybe not. We're not talking about the revenue as such, but maybe a kind of fulfillment. You want to be better at something. You want to try something. You want to feel like you're capable, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think fulfillment is a very good word. And also the driver to help people, an internal drive to help people. I think it's it's very much values driven. Yes.
So 2015, tell me about that. Obviously, it was pre-everything, pre-pandemics, pre-everything. Obviously, that's different times, completely different times. So tell me about your start. So what was your biggest challenges? You started business, you said, yes, no problem. Let's do the LTD business or self-employed. What's your challenges at that time?
Well, 2015, and it was May, and I remember it very well because, and it will be a nice memory to you because it was actually, I linked it with the first networking event of PB Link, and it was my first ever stepping into a business networking world as a startup. I started as a self-employed consultant and then tried to build it up, but I think if you're asking about challenges, for me, reflecting on this one, I think they were mostly my own personal traits that were challenging. So you see, I'm quite a perfectionist. I'm a very determined person, but I'm also quite perfectionist in my approach. And it can be a good thing, but you have to remember every stick has two ends. So yes, the quality of the work you produce might be superb, but then you sacrifice other things because maybe you spend too much time, effort, attention on things that, maybe no one ever gonna notice but you. So I think it's all about learning process as well. And I think for me, the past 10 years in general, it was about growth as a person, not only as a business. So I think it's quite an interesting as well. And of course, if in our Polish-British context, it's quite an important, interesting place to be a immigrant entrepreneur because it exposes us to different situations that maybe native people don't experience. And upon reflection, I think this is one big part of my growth strategy, that I always treat people, whether they are my colleagues, employees, contractors, clients, in a way that I would like to be treated, because I went through certain experiences. I had some very good bosses, some very good business relations. I dealt with some horrible people as well, and you kind of soak all of those experiences, you sieve them through, you see what's yours there, and then and that's how I think it becomes the way you drive business forward.
It's fascinating. I think this is fascinating. Having a full-time job and let's be honest, career in health and safety could be easy enough. You can be head of health and safety somewhere, but you decided to go to that entrepreneur's route, find your way, find your niche, and like typical problems, finding the clients, but getting that through your, niche and networks, which is always fantastic. So coming back to your health and safety, obviously health and safety and many kind of opinions is like, yes, tick boxing exercise. You've got the checklists you're doing and you kind of forgot. So obviously we know the mentality of Polish businesses and generally, maybe even I could generalize in Eastern Europe, about health and safety. In the past, things have changed, obviously. So how do you change perception of the value that you that you're bringing to the business?
Well, you're right. It's often seen as a necessary evil, and people complain very often about the red tape, the demands, the legal requirements. And there are many biases as well and misconceptions circulating around health and safety. Many business owners, and we're talking about smaller business owners, we're talking about people who start up, SMEs, they perceive it as operational obstacle. They see it as complication, as cost. And it's a very short-sighted approach, and it's based mostly on a lack of knowledge and people not seeing the bigger picture. And the bigger picture for me is that if you run a business that hires people, because, our profession is all about people, you have some pretty serious reasons that you should consider to look after and manage your health and safety properly. You have, from moral perspective, of course, it's a responsibility for other human beings. It's our duty of care. Then legally, if you think about the UK legal system, it's quite robust. It has a lot of statutory instruments, so directors can be prosecuted if they found to be negligent on health and safety. And people very often, especially immigrant business owners, they don't realize it. They think in categories of their own country, old country and old legal system. But then financially as well, if you think about poor safety management or lack of safety in general, can cost a lot of money. UK sentencing guidelines since 2016, fines and penalties are issued proportionate to turnover. And then think about all the indirect costs as well.
Yes.
And many business owners don't realize that safety arrangements that are inadequate can lead to some serious indirect costs, because think about invalidating your insurance, for example.
Yeah.
So for me, when you ask about changing perception, it's all about, and it's always been about education. So hence why as well my involvement in many different British, Polish research projects and educational projects and conferences. It's changing perception, but in a practical way, and not only explaining the theory. From day one, as a business, first as a self-employed and then as a company, I've always been very keen on the hands-on approach, practical approach, hence the name, Practipol, Practical Polish, how to make it work, how to really make it for you as a client and your business. Think about it like this. For many people that I've met on my business path, there is a very particular emotional side of being an entrepreneur, of running a business. Many people treat their businesses like their baby. So in a short ways, I tell them how to look after their babies and how to make sure they grow healthy and happy.
I love the idea, and I think this education piece applies to most of us as a business, and especially within the service sector, that education is well needed, and quite often it depending on the sectors and what actually you do, that education piece takes sometimes longer, to convert that business into some kind of proper revenue. But moving on, like most common mistakes people are, doing when it comes to health and safety. Maybe you can share some of that, especially within our community, but in generally, probably applies to most of us. What is the common mistake when it comes to health and safety approach?
It's very interesting. There are a lot of common threads or patterns, if you like to call them patterns, that many business owners followed. And I would say, if I was to name the most three common ones, let's say, so overall, I think not being up to date with legal requirements, what's happening with the sector, any trends, any technological updates. In terms of compliance, some business owners, especially smaller companies, they are very tempted to use generic resources. They want risk assessment, RAMs or policies. They download things from the internet. They change their name on a document and they're happy and they think it's gonna sort out their needs. And it's obviously not the case. All the health and safety compliance documentation that you needs to be suitable and sufficient. It needs to be fit for purpose. So generics and things downloaded from the internet simply don't work. In terms of practice, I think a big common fault, common mistake is a lack of leadership commitment or lack of leadership taking it seriously. You know the old saying that the fish starts to spoil from the head. If we're talking about protecting people in real terms, because again, a lot of people see health and safety as a paperwork requirement. It's not. Paperwork is there really to document, to evidence something that you do in practice. Yeah. So if we're talking about protecting people in real terms, we need to really understand it's all about changing and impacting the culture, the organizational culture. And culture must be driven by a committed leadership.
Yes.
And if you think about it, every organization has a culture.
Yes.
Culture is either positive, negative, or indifferent. And the indifferent ones are very difficult to maneuver and to change. And I see it in many companies. I've seen it over the years. There's a big gap between the vision and the slogans and the actual practice. And that's what makes it tricky. There are different definitions. I think when we're talking about culture, there are different definitions of, people do their PhDs on safety cultures and workplace culture. And
wow.
I think the simplest solution are the most practical, they work the best. And my favorite definition of a safety culture is that's how we do things around here when no one is watching. So we don't do anything just to prove anything, but that's how we do things around here. Really, the work is done rather than work as imagined.
So this is fascinating. Leadership, it's there. It's yes, if the leaders will realize and they have a right culture and the mindset to do the change, that is something that definitely will affect the business. It's not only from the health and safety perspective. Generally, training people need attention. And one of them is safety, the one of the most important ones. So moving on is like lots of changes. What is the landscape in the UK that changed recently? I don't know, health and safety. There are lots of AI era. I don't know whether that is affected, but what is the perception? People are working from home. I guess this might kind of change a little bit, but give us a little bit more kind of macro view of that safety landscape in the UK.
Safety landscape is very dynamic, and in general, for everyone that thinks that health and safety is a boring profession, well, definitely I can prove you wrong very quickly. It's a very dynamic field. If you think about how dynamically the world of work is changing, and if you observe what's happening around in different sectors, then think about health and safety always being in a background. And that's what I said earlier, that we always need to be kept on our toes. We always need to be up to date. The post-pandemic shift for many organizations who were office-based, and now they moved to a remote or hybrid style of working. That's something we can experience, because it surrounds us. Now, in terms of shaping the future, there are some change patterns they are observed, and I think they can be seen as directional. They will, and they are already setting certain direction. So, have you heard the expression "health and safety gone mad"? People say health and safety gone mad.
Yes.
So you see, let's call it a social economic aspect. If you think about the rise in what we call claim culture, when people say health and safety go mad, they actually don't see the bigger picture of it, and they don't consider how insurance industry drive this. And also, it's a huge influence on health and safety. So it's not always that health and safety gone mad and regulations themselves or requirements have changed, but certain impacts of the insurance industry is very noticeable over the past years. And then also add to it age-related attitudes, generational differences, millennials, Generation X, Generation Z. If you have two employees and one is in their 20s and the other one is in their 40s, they will have very different approach to work, very different attitude, very different expectations from you as an employer. Yeah. So, they connect with work very differently, and we also have to adapt to it, and we also have to consider it. Then I would say, you mentioned AI. Yes, but AI is part of the bigger revolution in general, technology developments in different fields and sectors, automation. Mm-hmm. How we actually do work is changing. So the risk profiles are changing. So we have to adapt and find new ways to control the new risk. We have to understand certain new risks. And then a very big trend, I would say, over the past few years, subject that has become very visible since the COVID pandemic, but actually it happened, it became a quite significant aspect long time before the pandemic, is mental health. Mm-hmm. And it's quite an interesting aspect because the world of health and safety professionals is very divided, almost half and a half. Some people say, well, we're not psychotherapists, we're not trained to look after people's mental health, we should concentrate only on the prevention of physical harm and looking after physical health. And then the other part of the profession thinks, yeah, but let's take a step back and let's look at the human being in a more holistic way. We cannot really separate mental health or physical health. It's all about health and protecting health. So not one of the cost of the other, of course, but I think balanced approach is very, very important. I'm a big advocate for looking after mental health in a workplace and all the well-being initiatives as well. Mm-hmm. And then you have some sector-specific trends that impact businesses, for example, and their clients, and in general, how certain sectors operate. For example, if you look at food safety, over the past 10 years, then there's been a massive change in terms of how food businesses need to manage allergens, and we know it will develop further because it's constant change. And one thing that UK businesses should be aware of, which is on the horizon for the next year or two, is Martin's Law. So this is the counter-terrorism legislation called Martin's Law in relation to the Manchester Arena attacks a few years ago. And it has been granted royal assent. So we started now 2-year implementation period. And within the 2 years, businesses that are in charge of public spaces and event organizers, event venues, they will need to develop additional safety and security measures to protect the public.
Wow, this is incredible. I'm glad you raised that point of mental health, because that I think this is something that everyone is a little bit like, they have a question like, am I okay by working from home all the time, and who can I turn to for help? So sometimes daunting, like for me definitely is a sport exercising. I'm working in front of the screens all the day, and then just going upstairs for dinner. That doesn't help. So definitely this is the big one to help, and this is amazing. So I'm conscious of time, Maciej. I have one more question, maybe two. I want to just go back to the Polish-British business angle and just ask you, like, as part of the Polish business community, what that unique strength gave you, that perspective of being Polish entrepreneurs, and maybe what that cultural background influenced, the way you grow your business now. So that's kind of Polish perspective.
Well, the Polish perspective, I think, we are well known as a nation for being hardworking, for being determined, for being quite competitive. But, we also are recognized in many fields for quality of what we do. We put quite a lot of effort. And I think as a nation, as a community, I think we are quite quick to react and we are quite adaptable. And if you see how over the years Polish people integrated into a wider UK society, you don't see it with many other immigrant communities. So I think we are quite open to integrate, which I think is our big strength. When you ask about how my background influenced the way I run a business, our typical traits, of hard work, I think it helps and definitely play a part. But if you look at the other side of the coin as well, I've experienced things like what you now call an imposter syndrome. So thinking, I'm just an immigrant. Am I good enough to do this? And that means sometimes you work twice as hard just to prove something to yourself, maybe not even to others, but, sometimes the mindset element of it. But as I said earlier, for me, it's absolutely and ultimately about treating others how you'd like to be treated. So, big thing for me, and I think we have this as a national feature that we know best sometimes. And for me, and linked with my perfectionism, when I started to actually work with others, when started to hire people, it was a big, big challenge for me to delegate and to trust people. So I've learned it. And I think it's a learning process as well. So first of all, I thought, nobody else can do it as good as me. And then when they proved me wrong, then I still I was micromanaging a little bit to make sure they do it exactly in a way. And, when I look at it from now, when I look back at this thing, I mean, how narrow-minded thinking it is. So, being more open and building trust in general, all directions, this is a key.
Great points here. I think the delegation part is a part of us, maybe not everyone, being really really good at what we are doing and precise what we are doing. And if you know that you're really good at asking for and delegating single tasks, will bring some kind of, I would say yes. Are you gonna be good enough? Like me, probably not, because I'm really good. But that's the mindset probably on another podcast about education and the way in our background, how we can prove ourselves. And I think for anyone who's listening this podcast is for you to speak out loud about, you're not being alone. Everyone's got that journey, and it's when you think and sit in front of your computer, when you run, jog, have a family, and you have doubts. Hey guys, you're not alone. This is the journey, and that part of the journey is to empower you, through community and through conversation like this. So just to wrap it up, 10 years, you've done massive job, which is like fantastic. And once again, congratulations for your efforts, for your community input. Now, closing remark is what would you like to share to listeners in terms of like your own journey, and maybe some kind of tips and recommendations? Maybe you can just give us some bullet points.
Well, I think a closing remark from me would be, first of all, try to really understand what drives you, what drives you from within, what you resonate with, what is there that really sparks that interest. Because this is, for me, I really think that there is nothing wrong with being a PAYE employee and having a comfortable life on working for someone. But the difference for me, all the difference that being an entrepreneur makes, it's all about adventure, the sense of adventure that you feel inside. So I would say, first thing, try to understand, try to really listen what you resonate with and what you connect. And then once you are more close to it, then, and I say it as a safety professional, don't turn away from risk. Because risk will always be present in life.
Yes.
So instead of pretending you can avoid it, you won't, and there will be very different types of risk. Try to befriend it. Try to make it your friend in a way that you try to understand it, and learn how to navigate different risks and how to measure them, because then you will know how to manage them and how to control them, and how much risk you're willing to take. Risking in general is a fascinating subject, maybe for another podcast.
Maciej, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all the remarks. And that was Maciej Klinowski at Practipol. Thank you very much, Maciej.
Thank you very much, Bart.
Welcome to the Polish Business Podcast. I'm Bart, and here we explore the stories of entrepreneurs like you building successful businesses. Expect short, sharp interviews packed with insights and inspiration to fuel your business journey. Let's get started.